Welcome to our small business tech podcast brought to you by FrontPoint, Utah's premier IT outsourced managed services provider. Today we're going to be talking about the cloud and specifically Office 365. So let's start off with the most basic and difficult to define question. Jeremy, I'm Dan Stanford.
And I'm Jeremy Wright.
Jeremy, what is the cloud?
Well, the cloud is basically a way of describing web-based computing services that are hosted outside of your organization. So instead of having a server or machine inside your office that is handling computing tasks, i.e. file storage, email, or anything really that a server or a computer does, it's just being hosted off-site in somebody's data center. Now, that could be somewhere like us, where we do offer hosted services for clouds. We do offer cloud services here, or it could be somebody like Microsoft, Amazon, or any other number of cloud hosting companies. So basically, it just means that there's something going on where you're accessing data or information or computing power that is not in your office, that is being hosted somewhere else.
I mean, honestly, you could say some of the very old services like Gmail, Hotmail, even America Online, hosting your email, those were all cloud services.
Correct.
But I think the key feature that's occurred is where people are now actively taking applications that were traditionally hosted in-house and putting them onto the internet. One of the premier services that that I alluded to earlier is Office 365. So Office 365 is a service provided by Microsoft. And in the Office 365 service, it is a monthly subscription that you pay for, and it includes Microsoft Office for your desktop computer, which includes PC or Mac, Microsoft Office for your mobile devices, your iOS devices, your Android devices, your iPads, your Fires, all those sorts of things. It is also Office Online, where you have Word, Excel, PowerPoint that is available to you through a web browser itself. So you can be anywhere in the world that has a web browser and still get to your Office products themselves and then get to your documents. It is also Exchange email, where you can use Microsoft itself to host Microsoft Exchange, so you can do your calendars, your contacts, your email, all those sorts of things just done by them. It also includes Skype for Business. So this is basically just Skype that we're all used to doing, web or video phone calls, but on steroids. So you can now share your desktop with other people in a conference call. You can of course do the video conferencing, but you can do whiteboard sharing. There's quite a bit more of the collaboration that businesses are used to. That is Skype for Business. And then lastly, one of the last big feature of Office 365 is SharePoint. Jeremy, you want to talk about SharePoint a little bit?
SharePoint is pretty much almost what you're used to with your standard like network drives or your standard file hosting in-house file server, but instead it's hosted in the cloud. So SharePoint gives you access to all of your files anywhere. The main difference would be that it is more of a traditional style system of what you're used to seeing, as opposed to like a Dropbox where it's like syncing files, or like a box type system where it's syncing files from somebody's computer to a cloud service. Instead, those files are hosted in the cloud primarily, and then you're accessing them with a device. We actually use SharePoint here in our office as our main file storage now. One of the advantages is that I'm able to access my files from anywhere. So I started my notes for this podcast on my iPad last night when I was sitting in bed. And then I came into the office and I worked on it a little more sitting at my desk on my Windows PC. And then I pull them up on our little junker Mac laptop here while we're doing this so I can see them easily. And I'm able to do that through using SharePoint and any of these devices. So it makes easy to access your files from anywhere, and it also gives us the ability to manage those files and like security type features just like you would on a standard network, as opposed to some of the other services that don't have that. And we can also integrate it with your local domain controller, so Active Directory, and we can also sync it with Active Directory in the cloud. You can also keep your domain name as well, so you can use your proper domain name, such and such company.com, as a sign-in for SharePoint, and you don't have to change any of those things. We can actually make it a pretty seamless process to switch to SharePoint and move your business into the 21st century, as opposed to keeping all of your services in-house and everybody has to access it from outside using different ways or thumb drives, et cetera. Instead, we can move almost an entire server to the cloud, basically file storage anyways, into the cloud and have access to it anywhere.
One of the neat things about SharePoint, because it is a Microsoft product, is we are all used to drive letters, say drive F being the server drive itself. So we know that if we save a file to drive F, everybody can access that file. Well, it is possible with SharePoint to map SharePoint to a drive letter also. So some of our companies, we've been actively working on migrating a number of our companies over to 365. Some of these companies are older companies with older employees that are not really interested in any type of retraining on how to do something as simple as pull up a file and then save a file. So we were able to, with these clients, just take their old drive mappings, their drive J, which was on their local server, and just change drive J to SharePoint itself. With very minimal training, they're off and running. In fact, we just brought one of our clients live on Monday with this. So SharePoint has a number of other features. It has file versioning, and it also has a data recovery. It goes into a recycle bin. But let's talk about the file versioning. The neat thing about that is every single time a file is touched in SharePoint, it creates a new version of that file, and the older version is then hidden and tucked away. So you don't necessarily see it, but it's there. So at any point, if somebody were to say make a mistake with a file or something to that effect, you can go in and see all the old versions of that file back in time. You can see exactly who did it, who modified the file, and at what day and time and everything. And you can say, what, I want this file, it was modified yesterday incorrectly, I want the file from the day before. And you can just pull that right on up, save it, overwrite the existing file, and off you go. And you take that in combination with the recycle bin, so if somebody deletes a file, it just drops right into the recycle bin. And even, by the way, if that user deletes the deleted items in the recycle bin, as an administrator, there is still a way to recover that file. So even if an employee is disgruntled and does something inappropriate, that data is still not lost. So SharePoint is able to come in, replace your good old file server, allow you access from anywhere in the world on any device, which is really kind of neat. And even devices that don't have anything to do with your business, you can pull it up on just your good old PC, a Mac, an iPad, an Android. It doesn't matter. You can still get to those files, and then you can still work on them. And then, of course, you don't even need to worry about backups anymore, which can be a huge boon for companies.
Correct, because the files are no longer saved locally in your network, so you're able to push off the burden of backing them up onto Microsoft. Since you're paying Microsoft for the service of hosting it for you, it's their job to make sure that your files are backed up, and if there's ever a problem, it'll get taken care of. And we're not talking about some company that started up out of somewhere in New Jersey or something, and they've got 5 employees. We're talking about Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world, arguably, and I'm not worried about them having any trouble with losing our data ever. I trust them to be able to keep it. And it is your data too. You're not giving your data to them by any means. It is still your data. They don't have any access to it unless you allow them access to it. And it's still yours. If you decide to go away from SharePoint, you can actually download your data and get a copy of it and move it off of their servers if you're concerned about it. One thing that is a caveat is you do need internet access at all times to be able to access your files.
Correct.
But, come on, this is 2015. When are you not able to access the internet. A lot of our clients have brought that up with us. They've said, well, what if you don't have access to internet? And our response is, please tell me a time when you don't have access to the internet.
There's always a way. You can, even if your office internet's down, you can grab a smartphone and start access SharePoint that way via cellular network. To speak to Microsoft in their dedication, commitment level to Office 365, the new CEO, whose name I cannot remember nor pronounce.
Satya Nadella.
Thank you.
Something like that.
Has made it very clear that Office 365 is their future, that they are moving into the services industry far more than providing a software product itself. So Microsoft is all in on this, and I think it is extremely wise. This is without question the future. To speak to the security of SharePoint very briefly, we've had some questions about that, and one of the very neat things about SharePoint is each individual file in SharePoint is encrypted. It's not the entire site is encrypted, so it's not one encryption key. Each individual file is encrypted. That level of security cannot be achieved on a local server without a tremendous amount of resources. And it's that type of stuff, the amount of resources and the amount of knowledge that Microsoft brings to the table on this issue that a small company with a server in-house simply cannot achieve in any type of reasonable amount of money. Why is Office 365 good for my company? Why in the world would I want to do this above and beyond the things we've talked about?
Well, let's talk about kind of the base of how Office 365 works to answer that question. So Office 365, for every user that you have, you pay a monthly fee for that user. There's many different plans. I can't even begin to start with which kind of different plans there are. There's many different ones. But instead of going out and walking into Best Buy or Walmart or hopping online to Amazon and purchasing a copy of Office for somewhere between $100 and $300, depending on the version, you instead pay a monthly fee per user. That person is able to download and install Office on 5 devices. That includes, a home computer, a work computer, a iPad, a tablet, a phone, etc., any device. Now, what they do is they can actually see all the devices they have it on and deactivate it. If you've ever lost a license key to Office before when you've installed it, you'll know how frustrating it is you have to buy it again, essentially, if you can't recover it in any way, shape, or form. So this allows you to be able to have the latest version of Office at all times without having to purchase new copies of it. Instead, you pay that monthly fee. Some of the plans do have annual commitments, so you have to commit for 1 year. Some of them do not. They do have month to month.
But you get a price break if you do the annual commitment.
Correct. And they have different versions too. So you can decide if you wanted, say, Visio, or if you wanted Microsoft Project. You can actually just get that for 1 month for far cheaper than it costs to purchase the full product.
Oh, it's on the range of like $20.
Yeah, $20 for 1 month of access to the $800 program, I believe.
Easily, yeah.
So you can't really beat that. So that's kind of how they're moving forward with this. So for your business, what it means is that your employees can have the latest version of Office at all times. So when they come out with a new version, you will automatically get it. You can turn that off too. You can turn off automatically getting the latest version if you're worried about things breaking, or if you have some third-party programs that tie in with Office that may cause an issue. You can turn that off, but you have the option to get the latest version at all times. You never have to purchase a full copy of Office ever again.
Some of the other benefits of Office, the other thing that can't be understated is Exchange. Having Exchange in-house is very expensive. It takes a lot of hardware. The licensing is enormous. The maintenance costs are challenging. And with Office 365, to be able to move Exchange off of your in-house server and into the cloud is a tremendous benefit. And it's included. I mean, all these things that we've talked about are included with the Office 365 license. There are migration tools that Microsoft has created to help move the email from in-house into the cloud. And of course, us here at FrontPoint, we're more than happy to help with that sort of stuff. The other bits to talk about is the cost of Office versus SharePoint Office 365, you no longer have that capital expense of either purchasing copies of Office for everybody, or adding it onto the cost of every PC that you pick up, or the capital expense of replacing an Exchange server. Most of our Exchange server quotes that we've been doing have been in the range of, I would say, $8,000 to $16,000. And to be able to skip that can be a huge benefit to small companies.
You can also use it as an employee perk of saying, hey, as part of working here, you get a copy of Office that you can install at home. And it doesn't really come at any cost to the business other than the standard cost of what they would normally do for Office 365. And your employees can install that on their home computer and use it for kids' school projects or things like that. And it's not necessarily tied to your company. They're not going to be storing their things on your SharePoint unless you explicitly give them permission to, but it allows them to be able to have that perk when they're at home and be able to have those copies of Office. So,
Jeremy, what have your experiences with supporting and the migration and then using 365? How has it been from your perspective?
From supporting it, it's a lot easier. It's more centralized. So we're able to get an overview of a company from their homepage of Office 365. We can see who has the licenses. We have several clients who are constantly changing laptops. They upgrade every year or every other year, the laptops. And it's always a struggle trying to get the same software installed on them, the same versions that they had, and they lose the license keys. Somebody doesn't keep track of them no matter how hard we try. We can't keep track of the license keys for them. Well, we try the best that we can to keep track of them, but if we never get them in our hands, we can't do anything with it. With Office 365, we're able to just have the user sign into their account, and it's done. They have the access to the programs, they install them, and they're on their way. And that's it. It's become much easier in that regard. Resetting passwords for email has been much easier because we can reset it right there from the Office 365 console, the same way that we would in Exchange, but instead it's not, we don't have to log into an Exchange server somewhere, then reset the password. We just log into the Office 365 from any computer, and we're able to do that.
My perspective of 365 and using it here in our company itself, it was an interesting thought. I would be at home in the evening and, thinking about the events that went over the day, and it would occur to me, I need to take care of this, or I need to update that spreadsheet. I need to make note of this. And then I would start to sit there and make mental notes of, okay, I need to get this done tomorrow. I need to get this done tomorrow. But then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I can do it from home. It doesn't matter. I have access to everything I have access to at work. So I just, grabbed my iPad, and just opened up that Excel spreadsheet, made the changes. Done. That's it.
And then even when for us, when we're on site and we need access to a file for one of our clients, whether it's a network layout or whether it's, the system specifications of something, we're able to access that from anywhere. I can easily pull it up and I can document things if I need to. I can take photographs. I can make notes of, a customer's network layout of the different equipment they have there. And I can do that all from my phone, and it's synced back here. Everybody has access to it if I let them, or I can save it into a personal file for myself, like a user drive. Whatever I need to do, I can do that from anywhere in the world.
It's awful handy. It's nice knowing that you have access to your data anywhere you want with all the Microsoft products, and everything is just taken care of. Mm-hmm. We here at FrontPoint, we've been doing a number of migrations. We're getting quite good at it. Migrating Exchange email, migrating your file services up to SharePoint, and we're more than happy to help any company out there take care of this. And there's some caveats that need to be watched out for during the migration. There is some, we need to interview the company, get to understand how it is that you guys work, and then come up with the best plan possible. Because there's a number of different ways to arrive at your destination. It's all about which is the best way for your company to get there. And we have that experience when we are happy to help.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more tools than just, we can't really cover everything that SharePoint can do for a business or Office 365 can do for a business, even in a podcast or even in a conversation. It's such a complex thing with so many different features that go into, there's Delve, and there's Yammer, and there's workflow. The Skype for Business is
OneNote.
a huge thing. OneNote. There's so many different components to that, and so much that it brings to your business. And some of it doesn't apply to us, therefore we don't use it. But there's many things out there that probably will apply to many different businesses when they look at all the different features that they can get with SharePoint and Office 365.
The cloud is the future. It is where things are going. It only financially makes sense. It only logistically makes sense, to stop hosting things in-house and go ahead and put them in places, with companies that have the resources to, give you that unlimited access and the like. We have seen, issues with smaller companies, companies on the magnitude of 20 or 30 users. And when their email goes down, it is a complete catastrophic event. I mean, it is, fire and brimstone, wailing and gnashing of teeth when it goes offline. Whereas, if you were to put that up into the cloud, the likelihood of that is much lower. And, the systems that are hosting this, the email are, tens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of servers are actually doing all this work for you versus one server in your office with one internet feed, with one UPS backup, and one actual backup itself. You have a lot more resources.
Also, keep in mind that it syncs with when you're doing Office 365 email Exchange Online. It works with Outlook just like a standard Exchange server does, and it uses the same password, same email address that everybody's already been using. So you don't lose anything by doing that. If anything, all you do is gain functionality and gain the security and peace of mind that it's going to stay online.
All right. I think we're about it with this podcast, unless you've got anything else, Jeremy.
If anybody has any questions about Office 365 or SharePoint, feel free to contact us. You can find us online at www.frontpoint-it.com, sales@frontpoint-it, or 801-312-9400. If anybody has any questions about SharePoint, about 365, even about Microsoft going forward, whatever you want to talk to us about, we're more than happy to help you out with it.
Thank you for joining us for our podcast, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you.